You start to notice it in quiet places, the spaces between your thoughts, the pause just before sunrise, the hush of the world when everything feels suspended. There's something there that feels familiar, almost like a whisper, though it isn't made of words. Its meaning, a subtle invitation you can't quite name. You lean into it and realize it's the same voice that has always been there, waiting, patient, steady. Not loud, not insistent, not demanding, just inviting. It's a voice that reached across deserts, across storms, across centuries of human hearts, and it still speaks to you now. It's the voice of Jesus. You let that sink in. 2,000 years, and his words still carry this kind of gravity. You scroll endlessly on your phone, through endless quotes and motivational phrases, most of them vanishing before your thumb even lifts. But his words, they linger. They stick. They're simple, unpolished, spoken to fishermen, wanderers, outcasts. Love your enemies. Do not be afraid. Peace be still. Short, sparse, almost casual. Yet somehow, within these few words, entire universes of truth are hidden. You can feel it, the depth, the resonance, the timeless relevance. And then a picture forms in your mind. A stone dropped into perfectly still water. The splash is immediate, sharp. The crowd that heard him, the disciples who followed, the doubters who questioned. But what lasts are the ripples. And those ripples are reaching you, here and now. Every time you choose compassion over bitterness, patience over panic, courage over cynicism, you feel that resonance moving through you, ancient yet alive. It's not history, it's current, like a tide that returns to the shore again and again, persistent, inevitable, transformative. You begin thinking about the power of words themselves. One phrase can lift a heavy heart. Another can linger for years, shaping self-perception. Words build worlds. Words create and destroy. And when Jesus spoke, he wasn't crafting clever saying. You imagine Jesus standing by the Sea of Galilee, sunlight bouncing off the water, gentle waves rippling toward the shore. He speaks, and it's not with grandeur or theatrics, but with quiet authority. Peace be still. Love your enemies. Forgive 70 times 7. You picture the disciples leaning in, the crowd silent, some confused, some riveted. And somehow, the same words find you centuries later in the quiet of your car, the early hours of the morning, or the pause before sleep. They reach through time like a thread, connecting you to something larger than yourself. And you realize that his words aren't just instructions, they are invitations. Each phrase is a key, unlocking a way of being that feels both radical and simple. What does it mean to love your enemies? Maybe it's not a sermon. Maybe it's the small, daily choices you make. The patience you extend to someone who frustrates you. The forgiveness you give when it's hard. The refusal to carry bitterness as a weight that shapes your day. What does it mean to be the light of the world? Maybe it's not about recognition or grandeur. Maybe it's the quiet consistency of showing up, acting with integrity, spreading hope even in moments that feel invisible. You start to notice that this isn't just about morality or doctrine. It's about presence, about anchoring yourself in reality differently. Words like peace and love are more than labels. They are practices, rhythms, ways to experience life. When he said, "Peace be still," perhaps he was speaking not just to the storm, but to your own restless heart, the chaos inside that never seems to quiet. And as you let that sink in, you notice a subtle shift. Your chest feels lighter, your thoughts slow, your shoulders loosen. The words are alive. They're not passive echoes. They are tides that touch something deep in you, that guide your choices, that reshape your perspective without forcing it. You start to see the rhythm of his words in your own life. It's subtle at first, the way you pause before reacting, the way you listen instead of immediately responding, the way you notice someone's pain and respond with care instead of judgment. Each action is small, almost invisible, but together they form a pattern. And patterns matter. They build character. They create ripples you might never see, but they matter just the same. You realize that purpose, in its deepest form, is less about grand gestures and more about consistency, intention, and alignment with truth. It's liberating, really. The pressure to be enough or to make an immediate impact falls away. You don't need to be heroic, loud, or visible. What you need is attentiveness, presence, and a willingness to allow ancient words to guide modern choices. You see how much power there is in that quiet life. The calls you make, the conversations you hold with patience, the simple acts of mercy and kindness that no one records but that are still deeply significant. It's a rhythm that rewards those willing to show up fully, without fanfare. And as you lean into that rhythm, you feel your own internal storms begin to quiet. Peace be still isn't just a line you remember. It becomes something you experience. Your thoughts slow. You begin to notice the spaces between the noise. Your heart feels lighter. Even when chaos or frustration enters your day, there is now a pause, a stillness that reminds you that the world isn't the ultimate authority over your peace. You are learning to anchor yourself in words that have survived millennia, to allow them to shape your reactions, your emotions, your decisions, your very presence. You realize this is not passive listening. It's active. It requires participation. Every time you choose patience over irritation, every time you extend grace instead of judgment, every time you speak truth with love, you are bringing the ancient words to life. You are part of the current, and then you start to notice the world differently. You see how easily frustration used to grip you, how often fear or doubt would dictate your actions. And now, there's space between impulse and response. You begin to recognize the power of listening, the weight of intention, the quiet authority of mercy. Even a mundane, emails, errands, conversations that feel repetitive becomes an opportunity. You can choose patience, compassion, or kindness in every interaction. And when you do, the words of Jesus are alive in you, moving outward, touching lives in ways you cannot always measure. You start to understand that his words were never meant to be theoretical. They were meant to be lived. Do not be afraid isn't just a statement from 2,000 years ago. It's an invitation to confront fear in your own life, to move forward even when uncertainty looms. Love your enemies is more than a moral instruction. It's an active challenge to embody grace, even when it's uncomfortable. And the longer you practice this, the more you feel yourself transformed, not instantly, not dramatically, but quietly, profoundly, imperceptibly at first, until one day you notice you become someone who reacts differently, who sees differently, who lives differently. The pull of these words grows stronger. You find yourself reflecting on them in ordinary moments, waiting in line, drinking coffee, walking in the park. They aren't static anymore. They are questions, prompts, currents. What does it truly mean to forgive 70 times 7? To bring peace where there is chaos? To act with courage where fear dominates? You begin experimenting, testing the gravity of these words in your own life. And the results are subtle but undeniable. Less tension, more clarity, more depth, more alignment with what matters most. And the quiet joy of it is surprising. You didn't expect joy to be so steady, so calm, so rooted. It isn't a fleeting thrill. It's a quiet certainty, a deep knowing that living I. And so, you carry this awareness into each day, letting it touch everything. The mundane tasks, the casual conversations, the quiet moments alone, they all take on new significance. Peace be still is no longer just a phrase, it is a practice. Love your enemies is not theoretical, it is actionable. Forgive 70 times 7 is not abstract, it is tangible, lived, applied. You start to notice that these words aren't just for extraordinary situations, they are for ordinary life. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice them, to live them, to make them real. And as you continue, you begin to feel an internal rhythm, a quiet pulse that carries through your choices. Even when challenges arise, even when frustration or doubt presses in, there is a subtle confidence, a deep steadiness that reminds you, you are anchored. These words have survived centuries, not because they were clever, but because they work. They touch hearts, transform lives, and create ripples that extend far beyond what you can see. And now, centuries later, you are part of that ripple, part of the current, part of the ongoing story that began long ago on the shores of Galilee. You begin to see the ordinary differently. Every moment is a chance to act intentionally. Every interaction is a chance to embody grace, and every challenge is a chance to practice courage and love. The words of Jesus are not just history, they're alive. They move through you, transform you, guide you. And when you finally grasp that, there's a quiet exhilaration, a sense that life itself is a sacred space, waiting to be filled with the resonance of love, peace, and intention. And as you breathe it in, you notice the next ripple forming. A phrase you've heard 100 times, but this time it feels new. Peace be still. And as you let it settle in, you realize that the storm outside and the storm inside can both be quieted. You carry that truth forward, allowing it to shape your day, your choices. You can almost hear it. The crash of waves, the wind whipping across the deck, the sting of rain that sharpens every sense. It's a scene that forms in your mind like a memory you never lived, vivid and impossible to ignore. You see the disciples in a boat, clinging to whatever they can, terrified by a storm that seems larger than life itself. The water swells around them, threatening to pull everything under. And there he is, Jesus, sleeping through the chaos, calm as still water in the early morning. You watch and your first thought is disbelief. How can anyone stay so utterly peaceful when everything is falling apart? And then, slowly, you feel it, the pull of that image. Not because it's a story from long ago, but because, in some way, you've been there too. Not on a lake in Galilee with thunder cracking above your head, but in your own private storms. When the bills stack higher than your patience, when the phone doesn't ring, when uncertainty creeps in like rising tidewater. You've had nights where thoughts toss you around as violently as the waves tossing that tiny boat. Anxiety didn't come with lightning or roaring clouds. It came quietly, like a flood you didn't see approaching. Storms have many forms, and sometimes the quiet ones hurt the most. Then it happens. The chaos around them doesn't change first. The wind still howls, the rain still slices the air, but you hear the voice. Not shouted, not forceful, just steady, deliberate, unshakable. Peace be still. 3 words. That's all. But they land like a hammer, like a key turning a lock in the heart of the storm. You pause, imagining the weight of that voice, gentle yet unbreakably strong, as if heaven itself leans into the syllables. And the world responds. The wind softens, the waves settle, and the disciples gape between awe and disbelief. And somewhere inside you, a quiet echo answers. Because those words aren't just about calming a sea. They are an invitation into a new rhythm, one that reaches beyond. As you sit with that image, something begins to shift. You feel it subtly, like the tide pulling at the edges of your consciousness. You begin to see that storms aren't only external. They live inside, too. The anxious thoughts, the fear of failure, the doubts about whether you're enough. These are waves crashing against your soul. And just like the disciples, you've been grasping for control, shouting, trying to steer the boat, wishing the wind would simply obey. But the truth hits differently now. There's a power that doesn't come from forcing or controlling. It comes from stillness, from trusting that there's a presence larger than the chaos. One that can calm the waves with a whisper. You reflect on the last time your life felt unmanageable. Maybe it was a deadline you couldn't meet, a relationship fraying at the edges, or an expectation you failed to fulfill. You remember the tension in your chest, the racing thoughts, the sleepless night. And somewhere in the middle of it all, you said the same words, silently, "I just need a moment." That's your human attempt at peace. But what if the difference isn't in wishing the storm away, but in noticing who is with you in the storm? The same presence that spoke to the sea then speaks to you now. The same calm authority that quieted waves whispers into your life. reminding you that stillness is not passive, it's powerful. You start to feel a subtle release. The tightness in your shoulders loosens. The knots in your stomach soften. You imagine his hand over the chaos, steady and unwavering. And somehow, in that imagining, your own heartbeat slows. It's not that the storm is gone. Maybe the problems haven't disappeared. Maybe the challenges still press in, but suddenly they're no longer steering you. You're learning the art of inner stillness. The storm remains, but you are anchored. You can breathe. You can think. You can choose presence over panic. And then you notice the pattern in your own life. As you dwell on this, your mind drifts further into the scene. You see the disciples, still wide-eyed, caught between fear and awe. You imagine what they must have felt, relief mixed with disbelief, exhaustion mixed with wonder. And you recognize yourself in them. So many times, you've been tossed around by life, trying to understand how you ended up in waters so turbulent. But now, for the first time, it occurs to you that peace isn't about the absence of waves. It's about presence, authority, and trust. Jesus doesn't need to fight the storm because the storm already responds to the one who commands it. And the same presence that calms external chaos can quiet the turmoil within. You think about the storms in your own day-to-day life. Maybe it's traffic that seems endless, a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, a deadline that keeps getting closer. Maybe it's the storm of your own mind, spinning through fears, doubts, and what-ifs that refuse to rest. And yet, in imagining Jesus calm in the boat, you start to realize that you are not alone in those moments. The same voice that stilled the sea is speaking to you now. It isn't magic, it's presence. It isn't escape, it's grounding. And it is available not after the storm, but during it. Right here, right now. You breathe in the imagery. The wind howls in your imagination. The waves crash against the sides of the boat. Yet inside, there's a calm pocket, a space untouched by panic. And you feel it spreading through you. A sense of steadiness that grows with each inhale, each deliberate thought. It's subtle at first, a soft undercurrent, but soon it's unmistakable. The storm is still there, yes. The rain still bites, but you're no longer driven by fear. You're anchored by something deeper, a quiet strength that doesn't depend on circumstances. And that, you realize, is freedom. The world around you rarely offers this kind of pause. Every screen demands attention. Every message interrupts. Every schedule press. As you linger in the image, the calm begins to feel tangible. You can almost sense the warmth of that presence, the assurance and the stillness. You realize that the peace Jesus offers isn't about removing life's challenges. It's about standing firm in the midst of them. The storm isn't a problem to be solved first. It's an opportunity to anchor yourself in something unshakable. And you begin to see that the same authority that commanded the sea to obey can speak into your own heart, into your mind, into the chaos that sometimes feels too heavy to carry. It's not forceful, not aggressive. It's quiet, deliberate, confident, and infinitely more powerful than panic, worry, or overexertion. You recall moments in your life when fear gripped you, when the waves of stress, doubt, or heartbreak crashed relentlessly. Maybe it was a fight with a loved one, a project that failed, or the endless pressure to keep everything together. You remember thinking, I just can't handle this. And yet, somehow you did. And now, looking back, you realize that even then, peace was available. It was waiting for you to choose stillness instead of resistance, trust instead of frantic control. Jesus' example shows you that the power to calm the storm is not about controlling the external world. It is about surrendering your need to control and letting something higher guide you through. The disciples' fear becomes your mirror. You've panicked in your own boats, shouted at your own winds, wrestled with your own waves. But watching Jesus, you understand something crucial. Fear doesn't have to dictate action. Panic doesn't have to steer the course. There is a steadiness available that isn't earned by effort but accessed by awareness, trust, and intention. And suddenly, the storms in your mind, the overthinking, the restless worry, the constant what-ifs start to feel smaller. Not gone, not denied, but manageable, navigable, containable. And in that moment, your chest eases, your thoughts slow. And in this stillness, a truth emerges. The power of peace doesn't just calm the storm. It transforms your experience of it. You realize that the next wave, the next setback, the next unexpected challenge won't control you the way it once did. You can't control the storm, but you can control your response. You can anchor yourself in presence, breathe deeply, and let calm lead your actions instead of fear. It's a lesson you can carry into every corner of your life. The workplace, the home, relationships, even your own thoughts. Wherever chaos exists, so does the opportunity to choose stillness. You begin to picture yourself in your own boat. Maybe it's the morning rush, the endless emails, the challenges that seem to come one after another. The storm is there, undeniably real. But this time, you aren't reacting with panic. You pause. You breathe. You hear the whisper of that same voice. Peace, be still. And in that pause, everything changes. Your mind clears. Your heart steadies. The storm hasn't vanished, but its power over you has. And the subtle thrill of control, not over the waves, but over yourself, courses through you. You are anchored. You are steady. You are ready. You see now that this peace is not a one-time miracle. It's a practice, a rhythm, a way of living. Every time anxiety rises, every time fear whispers, every time chaos threatens, you can choose to return to that stillness, to speak calm into your own life. And each time you do, it builds. It strengthens. It reminds you that the authority Jesus demonstrated is not locked in history. It flows into your life, accessible anytime you need it. It is the quiet power that steadies hearts, calms minds, and restores perspective. And as you carry this truth forward, something subtle happens. You notice life differently. The noise of the world doesn't disappear, but it doesn't define you. The storms don't stop, but they no longer control you. And you feel a deep, abiding courage.